with a little bit of, my thanking of our sponsors, which is Photo Shelter, Epson, Archive Magazine, the great folks over at Pro Photo Daily are always helping us out, and American Photographer and American Illustrator. So tonight we have three wonderful photographers: Joel Simpson, Mark Grochowski. He'll get that right for us later on. And first up is our friend Bob Zahn, who has a new book, which I'm showing you here, and he is going to tell us about his journey. And it's all yours, Bob. You're on.
Zoom me up, Jay.
You all set?
All right, share your screen there, Bob, or you know what you're doing. Hey, Robert.
So, don't you have to switch me?
Oh, you're good. You just have to hit the share screen button.
Hit the screen. Okay.
There you go. We see your screen, Bob.
Sorry?
We see your screen.
Okay. So
You can just go back to your preview. You can double click that and just drag over the rest of the images.
There you go.
Okay.
preview. Here we go.
Bob, you got to go to the preview first.
Preview on you.
No, double click the first picture up top.
Yeah.
Double click, go back to your folder, Bob, the projection slide folder.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. And everybody's like, "Oh, you got to get out there. You got to get out there." Like, that'd be nice, but
Sorry, guys.
Bob, you can close the Chrome for now. Just go back to the folder behind it. Projections Live, that folder behind it. Go all the way up top. Scroll all the way up top. Double click the first picture. Is that your first image?
No, that's the
All the way up
last
top.
one.
A little bit more. There you go, number one. Double click that. Okay, click on view. You see view. You can drag the rest of the images to the left-hand side.
Sorry, everybody. We had it down before, but
There you go. Now you can just go to view and then full screen.
okay. I'm Bob Zahn, and I am a portrait photographer. I also do documentaries and
Everyone, if everyone could mute, their mics at this moment. Thank you. Not you, Bob. Go, Bob.
so by a portrait photographer, I mean I take pictures of people. And I went to film school and learned that in feature films, the close-up is the most important photograph in the film because it's so revealing of the story. So I learned to take portraits, and I've been taking photographs since I was 17 years old. My first camera was a Nikon F, and I've always stayed with Nikon because of their glass I can't speak enough about the quality or the importance of glass for a camera. A camera, it has a sensor or film, but the light and the quality of the image is transmitted through the lens. And I use prime lenses only. Prime because they're the sharpest and they're the fastest. And they have a fixed field of view. And I just work handheld. So I move to wherever I want to take a photograph. And my light kit is in my back pocket. It's called Mother Nature and the sun. So I'm mobile. I have a good eye, thankfully, and I trust myself. So that's a little bit about me and photography. And this is a photograph of my father when he graduated from high school. And this is how it all began. Our home 8mm movie camera. My father was the photographer in the family, and the family used to get together to view these pictures, and everybody would laugh, and there was so much joy, and there was what I call cackling, that it just was so rich with emotion. It just stuck with me forever. So I got into film. This is the first camera I used, and I started as my father's projectionist, and you know, the rest is history. But 7 years old, I had a camera in my hands. 18 years old, I had a still camera in my hand. So this is my story. In 1989, you know, I'd been taking photographs with my Nikon. I said, well, I want to up my game. So I bought a medium film camera, the Mamiya RZ67, with a portrait lens, 150mm. And I just wanted to make better pictures than 35mm would allow me to.
Ansel more than John.
So,
The way to art is through craft, not.
so this was the first photograph I took in the Southwest, one of the first with my Mamiya. I saw these people in a roadside stand. My eyes bulged. Look at their faces. They were in the booth next to mine, and when they left, I ran after them. Because when I run after people, that means I'm really interested in taking their photograph. I asked them if I could take their portraits. We stepped outside. I brought my camera out. Now, I posed them. And this is the resulting photograph. One picture says 1,000 words. I saw that and I said, And then I realized one photograph does not an artist make. So I had to do a portfolio, a collection. So this is 1989. I'm working, I have my own company and very involved, very busy, but photography is like my art. And I am an artist and have been since I was a child. So I got this camera, I took this photograph, said, If you notice, this is my style of photography at its best. Minimum optical distance, wide f-stop, shallow depth of field. And when I'm really working, a long exposure. Look at the toothpick in his mouth. He's twirling in his mouth. To get motion in a still photograph is, what can I say? It's a joy. So this to me just spoke so much, and I called it American Gothic. Why? This is American Gothic by Grant Wood. And it sang to me, my photograph sang to me of this this beautiful painting done in 1931 on a beaver board by Grant Wood. This has been influenced, so again, one image does not an artist make. So in 2007, I saw Sean Penn's film Into the Wild. On the big screen, several scenes he went into Slab City. I saw the faces there, I saw the background, and I said, I've got to go there. I'm really thankful to Sean Penn because he's the one who led me, who directed me to Slab City. And it was because of the people and the images I saw on the screen that I wanted to make a statement. I wanted to do something different. I want to take portraits of people. I didn't want to do birthday pictures. That's not me. I wanted to do a story. I didn't know what I was getting into. I moved lock, stock, and barrel to Calipatri, which is 8 miles away from Slab City. And I started going there every day. I'm walking in with my Mamiya light meter. These people are, very wary of outsiders, but they saw that I was serious about my photography. And what I brought with me was a Canon portable color printer. So I could make a color print 4x6 inch of every photograph I took, or the best photograph I took of everybody. Take the photograph, whether it was a film and it took like 2 months to get it processed, or a digital film, which I could do the next day and process in Photoshop. But then I would make a print for them. They would start to see my images and they opened up to me. So much so that I became an honorary slabber, which is a privilege. And my slabber name is Photo Bob, Fotobob. A slabber name is something you're dubbed. You don't give it to yourself. People give it to you.
And
So
take the microphone.
welcome to Slab City. I'm going to let the pictures do the talking. A lot of the images are portraits. And, after I started taking the photographs, I said, there's more to it here. There's a story, and I'm a visual storyteller. And what I did is I went back to every person I met and asked them what they thought of Slab City. At the same time, I got a written release from them. So they're telling the story of Slab City. I'm taking the photographs. So here we go. This is the cover photograph of my book. That is Z. She was adorned like this one night. 2 minutes. I took her to a spot. What I do is I ask a person to follow my hand with their face and their eyes, left to right, so I can pick out the best view of that person. And when I find it, I say, hold it. At the same time, I'm putting them in a place where they're lit. Lighting is key. And when you're working with sunlight, well, there's only so much you can work with. Here, it was towards the end of the day, the cut of light on her cheek, three-dimensionality, and the image, the lighting on her face, the image, that became the cover photo for my book because it jumped off the page. But listen to her quote: Slab City, slab, loneliness, atonement, beauty, cups, insanity, tequila, and youthfulness again. That pretty much sums up Slab City. One picture, her words. This was the first photograph I took in Slab City with my Nikon. I met Cuervo, who was by the side of the road, and again, my eyes bulged. This was a character that expressed the essence of Slab City and a personality that is so strong that I took this photograph. I posed him and I took this photograph. I saw it on the EVF viewfinder and I said, wow, I'm home. His quote is, "I got to get back to nature. Civilization has gotten us nowhere." So that's Cuervo and his mule Rock and Roll. Blackie's in the background, but I knew I had found my location. I'm thankful so much to Sean Penn. I'm still in communication with him. This is, I met the people of Slab City as I got to know the place. This is Preacher Dave. Preacher Dave is no longer with us. There are 4 people in the book who passed away. Preacher Dave of cancer. This is a photograph, a portrait I took of him, and it spoke to me. His quote is, "I was called to Slab City by God." This is Cornelius Van Gogh. That's in the background, her van, which is where she lives. She lives in a van, and she's by the tanks, and behind her is the tank, and that's her living room in the background. Look at her. Look at her pose. This has been snapped up by BuzzFeed News as the picture to lead off their story, which is online. Her quote is, "Been living in vans so long, looking for a place to be without getting into trouble. Haven't found any place cooler than Slab City." This woman is badass, and you have to be that way out there. You're on your own. A lot of guys, you have to defend yourself. So some people do it by their aura, their being. This was the essence to me of Cornelius Van Gogh. Builder Bill of the Range. Builder Bill is a longtime slabber, been there over 20 years. He was living in vans in San Diego. The police were harassing him, giving him tickets. And between paying for tickets, going to court, he said, "I've had enough of this." He heard about Slab City and he went to Slab City. When he was there, he said, well, this place needs a nightclub, a place for music to be heard. So he built the Range, which is the weekly outdoor nightclub every Saturday night. Anyone is welcome to attend. Anyone can sing a set of 3 songs. Just sign up on Bill's sign sheet and then you're on for that night. It's really incredible. But this is Builder Bill. He's one of the key people in Slab City. This is Doc Clue. Doc Clue. In the book, I have several Snapchats, what I call Snapchats, where I interview people and they talk about themselves and their background. And they tell their story with a little more in depth, and it's all in the book. But he's quite a personality. You know you're a slabber when your dog has more sex than you, is this quote. Now, this is Dreamcatcher at her kitchen in the slabs. Dreamcatcher, her quote is, "Slab City is a bit like Lost America. People come here from around the world to be free." In the book, I have her close-up as well. Sometimes I'm pairing photographs with close-ups with their individual scene and their place where they live. So here, this is Dreamcatcher. You see on her coffee, her name, and she's an incredible person. Dreamcatcher is her slabber name. This is Starshine. Starshine, this is a name that, again, is a made-up name, but it fits her so well. Here she's in the back of her van, holding one of the signs, "Traveling in the Name of Love, Donations Welcomed." She was an inspiration to me. I took a lot of photographs of her. I'm in touch with nearly everybody who I took photographs of. These are members of the Oasis Club. That's Doc Clue in front. He wears dresses because they're organic and they're cheap. And they are lightweight and easy to work with and when the temperatures get up to 110 degrees. These are a group of people. I asked them to smile. One picture says 1,000 words. This is Apache. Apache's on top of the Sentry Gate in Slab City. Welcome to Slab City. He's got his arms raised in the air, a V sign, his axe in his hand. Welcome to Slab City.
Bob, just a quick question. Can you tell us what are the commonalities between the people that are living there? Like, what is the common thread that you felt with most of these folks?
They all have turned their back on mainstream society. They want to get away from it. It's called the beast.
The beast.
We live in the beast. They wanted to get away with that. They're off the grid. No running water. It all has to be trucked in. No wired electricity. They get the minimum of power from solar power. And for outhouses, for sewage treatment, outhouses. So it's a classic off the grid. There are no governmental city services that is delivered to them.
Okay.
And in the summertime, the temperatures get to be 120 degrees. So there are only about 150 true slabbers. What's the commonality? They're survivors. And they're there because Slab City, they can be free. They can be free to be who they are without judgment. Just think of that.
Yeah, and what's the difference between a permanent and a temporary slabber?
So you have the slabbers who, you have to be a slab, to be a slabber, you have to be there for 24 months straight, 2 summers. Then you can be called a slabber. There are seasonals, people who come back during the winter, the fall, and the spring. when the temperatures ease up, it's only 5 months because they like the lifestyle. There is no rent in Slab City. Just set yourself up wherever you are, set yourself down, and that's your place to stay. There are no laws in Slab City, except don't interfere with your neighbor's stuff, and please clean up after yourselves.
And
It
Bob,
is in California.
what state is it in?
California, Lower
Oh.
California.
I see.
It is still governed by United States governmental and city laws. So the police can come in at any time and enforce the law. But Slab City is a place unto itself. They keep watching it for trouble, and that's about it. So slabbers really have a lot of freedom. Amazing.
And how many people are there permanent? I mean, is it 100? Is it 200? Is it 50? Any idea?
150 approximately.
Okay.
They live in trailers. They have key places called an ice room where they just are in a cubic space, maybe 8 square feet or less, with their air conditioner and fans and ice blowing. That's how they stay cool. Water, ice, essential. If you ever go to Slab City, bring them water. They'll love you.
How do they make money and then spend it on food and clothes?
Well, what you bring into Slab City is all you've got, period.
And Bob, keep on running through photographs as you talk.
But this is the signpost. This pretty much says Slab City is often called the last free place in America. This is the speed limit in Slab City. This sign wasn't up the next week. So there's a town nearby, Nyland, and it's like 3 or 4 miles away. You can walk there, ride your bike, or people give you rides and lifts. There's one store there, Maze. It's a grocery store / department store. It's everything. And that's where you go for food, water, supplies, everything. This is Jazzy. This is sorry. This is a camp, and this is Pixie's camp. That's her trailer. She's hanging up her laundry to dry. It's blowing in the wind. And the quote for this is, "The air, the earth, the trees are all sucking the water right out of you." 3.23 inches of rain per year in this part of the world. This is Camp Clothespins. Electric dryer not required. This is Willie. He's a seasonal slabber. That's the other type of person. They come back for the seasons. The other person, there's snowbirds that come from the colder climates of North America. They come down there, plunk down in their RVs. Some of them are luxurious, and they stay there during the winter months when it's freezing cold at home. They're called snowbirds, and then you have transients that are passing through, are there for a week or so, backpacking, whatever. And then you have the touristas and day trippers who are only there for a week, and they mostly stay in their cars and take a lot of photographs, selfies. They get out of their car, don't interact, but they look at the place. And one of the people I know said, well, you know, I really didn't want to take photographs of people because it seemed too much like a zoo. These people are real. You just have to get out and talk to them. They're incredible people.
This is beautiful picture.
This is Willie's dog, Annie. A lot of dogs in Slab City. And there's 2 doggy cemeteries.
Hmm.
Have you been back since you published the book?
I have not,
Okay.
but I'm going to. My situation has changed. This book, I'm selling it. It's a limited edition. It's artist proof only. But I've given it to certain slabbers who helped me with the book, and especially the ones who I did Snapchat for. This is Jazzy. This was a backdrop I used, common backdrop. Again, just look at her face. I want to be invisible as a photographer. I want the people to read. I want you to commune with the people. Look at their eyes. Their eyes, I asked them to look directly into the camera, because walking forward or backward, side to side, their eyes are always there to meet yours. You can do it right now. Just move your head side to side. You'll see. Again, Jazzy as herself.
Good, Bob.
This is Jazzy's camp. This is a pretty well-known photograph. It's been published and online. And again, one picture says 1,000 words. So here I'm seeing the place. I'm showing Slab City, but the person is the most important thing.
Bob, I'm guessing you did not ask their ages. Is that correct?
Next question.
Okay.
This is Cuervo. This is a portrait of Cuervo. His quote here is, "Gotta keep population adjusted to meet resources, or else we're fucked." I did a Snapchat with Cuervo. I'm still in touch with him. He lived outside of Slab City in this incredible treehouse. He didn't consider himself a slabber. He said, "I'm an outlier." What a figure. I took more pictures of Cuervo than anybody else. This is Cuervo in his man cave. Available light. Light coming through the door of his man cave. Nikon up the ISO, available light. That's his man cave. This is Burl. Burl is a slabber. And her quote I'm trying to get to is incredible, because she talks about how Slab City is just a wonderful place. It's a vortex of art and recycling. And she's one of the musicians in Slab City. Her real name is Burl. Papa Jimmy. Assistant in all of them. I want them to stand out. I want them to be looking at the camera, meeting eyes with yours, and I want you to just dive in. This is April at the hot springs. April is a slabber. Her quote is, "My parents don't even know I'm here." In the background is the hot springs. Clothing optional. In her hand is a joint. smoke drifting up into the air. 1 year after this photograph, April gave birth to her first daughter. 9 months after that, she gave birth to her second daughter. And she's a slapper, mother of two. Julie Bob. No quote, but just look at that face.
Mm.
Tomahawk. Be leaving the slabs or be leaving the slabs is her quote. Really, really wonderful person. That's her hat. Again, I'm dealing with natural light. The eyes are so important. I need the eyes to read. Fortunately, with film, with digital, you get a full range of contrast and light, and with Photoshop, you can also do amazing things. Chocolate Jesus. Glad to share the magic, is his quote. Have I gone 36 minutes already?
You have, Bob, you got to finish her up, Bubby.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's
Anyway,
okay.
it's all in my
Just go,
book. All in my book.
Bob, it's okay. Just go through them quickly now, because we'd like to see them, but just, run through them. That's so, yeah, great.
This is this is at the range. This is at the Oasis Club where they have acoustic music once a week.
Yeah, and
Lit
Bob,
by firelight.
these people who come for weekends or a couple of months, do they integrate right away with the slabbers, or there's still like a little bit of, or there's still like the natural separation?
That depends. It depends on who you are, your presence.
Okay.
You know, you come out, you talk to people, they talk with you. You don't, they don't. This is prom night. One night a year, the last Saturday in March, everybody's welcome to get dressed up to the nines. I was the official photographer for 3 years. Flash camera, flash. I never used flashes, but this was the only way to get the photographs. This is Art Garden East Jesus, the entryway. That's Aaron. This is Cinnabar Charm, the originators, Charlie Russell, who passed away. That was his first vehicle, and that is the first piece of art in Art Garden. El Brino, Walter the Buried Bus, and Muffin Tin.
Great.
I just wanted you to see this photograph. This is untitled, but I do have a title for it. One picture says 1,000 words. I can't get to the next picture, but it's an image of Manet's The Dead Toreador, a painting done in 1864. Incredible painted image. This to me is painterly. I took all the sharpness out of it. It's just an image that spoke to me. And my next project, I'll talk about it briefly. It's called Gallery of New American Citizens. 193 people representing every country in the United Nations. 193 people, head to toe, holding something and wearing something that reminds them of home. This is a land of immigrants. I couldn't tell this story a year ago because of the situation. But now I want to tell the story of immigration. It's a big project, huge. I'm inspired by Small Trades by Irving Penn and People of the 20th Century by August Sander. It's going to be my own. It's going to be my own style. But Ligia Goria from the LAX, Los Angeles Arts Cultural Commission, said she wants to see a proposal for LAX in 2022. Imagine moving on a conveyor belt, 8-foot tall images on the walls. You're going by people, one at a time.
Great. Well, Bob,
It's going to be a book too. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And listen, Frank, how much did I have to pay you to get up first?
a lot, Bob, an awful lot. But you know what you have to do? You have to thank Swanee and you have to thank Louisa Curtis for being, you know, a major force behind pushing you to continue this project. They really are heroes here as well for seeing the vision, pushing you, and you know, you on top of that cake, to see that through. That's a long run. You know, 6-7 years to do that. We're all thrilled. And anyone that wants to get the book, you can go to bobzahn.com.
I'm going to do a reprint and it'll be out in the fall. This one is gone.
Yeah.
This one is gone. Swanee, you got it?
Yeah.
I wonder why.
And
Frank, you got it? I wonder why. Thank yous.
No, thank you. So let's take a 1 or 2 minute break and we'll get Mark right up and we're ready to go. Bob, great job. Thank you so much for sharing. Everyone's loving it. Great job, Bob. Let's take a break for more wine or beer or a glass of water.
Oh, this is another book. California Love. I was in this book. It's by Michael Ravavi. 320 pages, 106 photographers.
Bob, turn off your share screen so we can see you and see the book bigger.
Yeah. Let's get Mark's stuff up there.
Hit ESC. There you go.
Bob, what's your Instagram name?
I'm sorry?
Your Instagram name.
Bob's at Bob Zahn ASC. Swanee, it's still there. I will change it, but Bob Zahn ASC. I'm American. I'm a member of the American Society of Cinematographers. You see our names at the end of motion pictures.
Okay, thanks. Oh, I see.
A big fan. Donna Ferrato loves the work.
I'll bet.
Yeah, she loves it.
Oh, there's Donna.
She's here.
All right, let's get Mark's stuff up there.
Hello.
Okay.
I'm gonna start.
Bob, stop sharing your. Okay, there you go.
Hello, folks.
Hey, Mark. Thank you very much for doing this, Mark. We appreciate it, and it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. Beautiful work, Bob. It was very inspiring. I didn't realize that was the place from Into the Wild. I love that movie, and the soundtrack is amazing too. So here we go. My name is Mark Grochowski. It's just Grochowski. It's pretty.
Sorry,
cool.
Mark.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Technically, it's Grochowski, but I keep it easier for people, so it's just Grochowski. And I'm going to be presenting a series that I did with a friend of mine who is an aerialist. Her name is Megan Hornaday, and she's spectacular. So here we go. It's tentatively titled Alone Together, and I'm trying to, here we go. So let's see, who do I think I am? Hang on one sec, sorry folks. Let me minimize Zoom here. Okay, I think that's better. So I'm originally from Chicago. I'm first generation. Both my parents are from Poland. And I moved to New York City in the 90s to work in the music industry. And I'm sort of the opposite of Bob. I picked up photography pretty late. I'll get to that in a second. Did my time in the music industry, became disillusioned, and luckily I picked up programming along the way, and then eventually worked at an advertising agency, freelanced a bit, and then most recently I worked for Major League Baseball as a programmer. And fortunately, a few years ago, in 2018, I was laid off from there. Before that, though, I had taken my first photography class at ICP in 2017. And it really spoke to me. I felt like I finally found my thing. I felt consumed by it. I felt I was thinking about it all the time at work, which might have contributed to me getting laid off, but I consider that now a blessing. And it allowed me to pursue my passion. I feel like I finally found my thing. And so I've just been hustling and trying to catch up. One of the first things I did is through a series of coincidences, I met Mark Seliger and was his second assistant for a bit. And then I've just been plugging away ever since. The pandemic, I spent doing a online video course called Full-Time Filmmaker, which was really great, and it kind of taught me how to do video. I'd also taken a few classes at SVA in cinematography and digital filmmaking, and really loved those and was incredibly inspired. The teachers were amazing. Shout out to Brian Gonzalez. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, tools in my trade. If anybody is here from any of these manufacturers and want to sponsor me, please reach out. I shoot on Sony cameras. Originally was a Canon guy, got a 5D Mark III, and then mirrorless just sort of seemed inevitable. So I bought a Sony a7 III with a Metabones adapter and was able to still use my Canon glass, which is very fortunate. But eventually I just wanted to keep it all native and needed another body. So I upgraded to a Sony a7R III at the end of last year. I love it. Lighting wise, I use pretty much exclusively Flashpoint, which is Adorama's brand, also known as Godox from B&H. And for ladders, I use Gorilla brand ladders, just because that's what they had at Home Depot. And I'll explain all that in a second here. So we've all probably heard this quote: "It's easier to ask forgiveness than it is to get permission." I've sourced that to Admiral Grace Hopper.
I'm still busy, yeah. But he can come in anytime.
Bob, you got to mute, Bob. Okay, sorry, Mark.
So originally, this project started as just kind of a dare and seeing if we could get away with it. My friend Megan and I had met a few years ago and then lost touch. And as I was getting into photography and doing more event work, we reconnected. She was performing at a number of events that I photographed. Shout out to Dances of Vice. And it turns out she was living a block away from me. And so we were talking, we wanted to collaborate and do some photos, and I, knew the beautiful kind of crazy work that she did. And I thought to myself, can I rig her somewhere in the city? So we both live near the meatpacking district. And I remember walking around by the Restoration Hardware and saw it. I'm like, oh, this would be really beautiful. So I did some research at Home Depot online and bought my first ladder, my one and only ladder. And I asked her, I'm like, hey, are you down for doing this? And she totally was. She's very fearless. So one of the things we did is we met and scouted out the location. And then I had to go back the next day with a tape measure to see if my ladder would reach. And randomly enough, the first location I tried rigging her at, I didn't have enough length on my ladder, so we switched to the following, and this is the first session that we did in the meatpacking district. This on the left there is the corner of, and this was summer of 2019. We pretty much always shot very early in the morning to avoid crowds. And the beauty of New York is just, as I feel like as long as you're not bothering anybody, you can get away with a lot. So as I was, on a ladder against that pole on the left there, rigging up her silks, a person from the store came by to like open up and was kind of being apologetic and like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in your way. Little did she know, we were just kind of guerrilla style making photos. So that was that. And actually, one of the concerns for Megan initially was getting up that early, because her being a nightlife performer, she, would get home about the time that I wanted to shoot sometimes. So, but she's such a trooper, and that's the first shot. This is directly across the street in front of the new Tartine. And this is basically that Flashpoint glorified speed light with a mag modifier on a stand. That's what I used for the other shot. This first shoot I used a mag mod, the rubber bulb kind of attachment that we've probably seen the photographers out there. This was a coffee shop that actually she frequented and knew the people there. So after we got those first two shots, we just started walking around. I was walking, we were walking through the West Village, me with my camera gear and a ladder, and her with our silks, just sort of looking for places. We found this place. She popped in and she's like, hey, is it okay if we do this outside? And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I think it's Kava Coffee House on Washington.
Mark, just a question. Like, yes. What did you gain or garnish from Seliger as an assistant, as the second assistant, that helps you now pull this kind of stuff off?
I mean, I learned so much, but there's definitely a fearlessness, I think, that he has. And I'm just a few years into my journey, but his creativity and his imagination are just incredibly inspiring to me. And he's really funny too.
Right. Okay. Now, just because, when people hear you doing this and doing that, you always wonder what those influences were from the ad agency and from ICP and Seliger's, how that affects you as you go on your journey.
Yes, I feel like although I've started late, I feel like my life experience has prepared me to go at it full speed.
Right.
And just try and take in as much as possible and just do as much work as possible.
Yeah, and I don't reference Seliger because of Seliger. I just reference another photographer just assisting to see, do this, don't do that, so you don't waste your time in this category or that category. You're just garnishing the wisdom from somebody else.
Yes, and just seeing how it's done at that high professional level. Before that, I'd I don't know if I'd been in a professional studio. And he has, you know, his own building with a studio and you know, it has a body of work that's just so inspiring. So just seeing how it's done at a huge like commercial level was incredibly eye-opening. And I don't know how long it would have taken me to learn that on my own.
Right.
So moving on, this I believe is the last one from the series. Oh yeah, Kava Cafe. That's where this was filmed in front of. And actually she is, sorry, that's Siri going off. She is rigged to the bottom of a fire escape. That's one thing I learned too, that my 14-foot ladder kind of fits perfectly, fully extended against the bottom of a fire escape. I'm guessing that's some sort of New York City legal requirement.
Will you continue that body of work, Mark, or is that it?
Oh, no, yeah, that's one of 5. So keep an eye on me as far as timing goes. So this is
No, I'm not talking about that, Mark. I'm talking about that series with her.
Oh yeah, that's what the next
That's what I meant.
4.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, that's what the next 4 volumes, if you were, are.
Okay.
So we did that. Had a great time. It was super fun and exhausting. And then Corona happened, and we all know what, you know, the last year or so had been like. But I don't remember exactly when we shot this, but in the height of the pandemic, just as the mask mandate was happening and people were freaking out and very sort of secluded and sheltered, I became a little stir crazy and reached out to Megan. And, you know, it was the initial beginnings of social distancing and whatnot. And so I thought it would be sort of a cheeky public service to do a series with masks and social distancing. Or it just, you know, gave us a reason basically to run around the West Village again. So this is right across the street from me, in front of, or off to the side of Echelon Bicycles, my local bike shop, who are amazing and really great group of people. That's Megan, again, hanging from the bottom of a fire escape. This, oh, there you go. You can see the process behind. So that's Megan again. I couldn't tell you what street that is, but basically, usually my ladder would, you know, at least hit the bottom of the fire escape. So we were very fortunate in that way. And yeah, it was pretty run and gun. Megan would basically, we discussed things beforehand. Typically, she wouldn't even tell me what she was bringing. She'd just show up and she's like, hey, I've got this outfit. I've got this outfit. I'm like, okay, let's try this here. And we just sort of made it up as we went. This is in front of the Jane Hotel. Her mask, actually, or that fleur-de-lis, or however you pronounce it, had sort of come off her mask. So we, or had become unattached from the fabric. So we basically put that ring, for lack of a better term, across her eyes and tucked it in there. This is...
Mark, how long did it take to set one of these shots up? You know, the logistics of putting up, you know, the thing that she's hanging from and all of that.
I mean, I had to work as quickly as possible because, you know, we, amongst us, we didn't have permits. But, you know, it was, again, there weren't that many people out. So to answer your question, I'd say, I don't know, 10 minutes. You know, basically I just extend the ladder, prop it up against whatever I could. And then there's basically, you can probably see in the other shot, there's an attaching loop, or there's an attaching rope, if you will, that basically has a cantilever, I forget what they're called, on the bottom. And that's what her straps would attach to, or her silks. So basically I just had to I had to put my ladder against something and be able to wrap a strap around it. and then she could hook onto it.
And she takes care of her own sort of security, that's strong and that's going to hold her and the lock is locked.
Yes. I mean, I did all the rigging myself because I didn't want to, put her in danger, and I felt like I should have some skin in the game. So she basically instructed me, and those things are, climbing type mechanisms. So when they're locked, they're locked.
Yeah.
They're not going to come apart. So yeah, that's in front of I don't know, some store off Bleecker Street, and this is again off Bleecker Street, and yeah, you can see the attaching rope at the bottom of the fire escape there. And yeah, for this one, actually, had the same, basically I used the same flashpoint speed light and just had a little mini beauty dish and like a 10-foot stand that I would just put on the sidewalk.
And you've got an assistant with you?
No.
No, you're doing it on your own. Okay.
Yeah, it was just her and I. So for volume 3, actually, this was again during Corona. I had been to a park by the waterfront in Brooklyn. I don't want to name names because we got in trouble a little bit. I'll explain in a second. There happened to be a factory across the way that they're now turning into condos, and we did a little urban exploring, let's just say. And I don't have a photo, but basically the interior of this factory, I think it's where Kara Walker might have had a thing a few years ago, that amazing art piece that she did. But the inside of this reminded me of like World War I or World War II, just like this bombed out sort of cityscape, if you will. So this was a big metal structure that we just found in the middle that I rigged her from. These pictures don't do justice. You can sort of see the shell of the building on the outside there.
Wow.
And yeah, it was epic, just the interior of it. And then we went inside, and I just happened to find this little shaft of light coming through from the street, or from the street level. And it was a little grimy around there, so I found a particle board that you can see there for her to stand on and just posed her there. And she, just.
That's some location, Mark. Wow.
Yeah. And honestly, I didn't plan that. That was us just like walking around, maybe trespassing a little bit, and found that. And and it's basically just a light off to the side, but that's just beautiful natural light coming through from the street level. Another shot from there, and then we found another level to this place, and I was able to rig her from the floor above, basically.
And those lights were there, or those are your lights, Mark?
No, those are all, I mean, everything behind her is ambient, for lack of a better term. Those are construction lights.
Wow.
I just have my speed light in a little, beauty dish on a light stand off to the right, as you can probably see, given the shadows. So yeah, that's all ambient around her, and I'm just putting some light on her with a small beauty dish on a light stand.
Great.
So volume 4, right across the street from that amazing location, is an actually fun story about that. So foolishly, we posted these photos to Instagram and tagged that location. And next thing you know, the owner of that account started posting comments to the effect of, "This is very illegal and unsafe, and we're going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law, et cetera, et cetera." And so, yes, we quickly unfollowed that account and blocked them. and sort of went on with our lives. Fortunately, it was, you know, the height of the pandemic, so I wasn't too concerned about, you know, them coming after me for something like that. But right across the street is this beautiful location, which if you look around, you could probably figure out or read where it is.
You really hid that well, Mark.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to keep it editorial-ish and not Photoshop things out, but
Yeah, no, that's good.
so on the right here, you can see there's that sort of cage thing. That's the ladder to the platform above where I rigged her. This is, if you've been around there, you've probably seen these crazy, I don't know what they are, like loading structures or something around there. So we climbed up there.
Is that something that's working currently, Mark?
I don't think so. I think it's just for show. I don't know. I haven't seen it work. And it looks like all the controls there and everything are sort of painted over. So yeah, I mean, bless Megan, because she's, you know, walking around in those heels and it was a little shaky up there. But another shot from there. The Williamsburg Bridge in the background. Or is that the Manhattan? And one more from below there. And yeah, the amazing thing about Megan is she's just, you know, kind of fearless. And I basically just have to be ready to capture her. You know, she just moves really poetically and beautifully. And I just have to, you know, there's no real plan as far as posing or whatever. She just knows how to move her body in beautiful ways. And this isn't.
How boring is this shot? She's only standing on a thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's
Beautiful.
legal-ish. You can get into that area. There's those shipping containers near Domino Park where people like skateboard and whatnot.
And you didn't see that sign on the bottom left, right?
I don't. No.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Let's say no. It was an accident. So, and then finally we did one, I don't know, a couple months ago now. Megan actually this time had found this location a couple years back, and it took some detective work to figure out where exactly it was. She sent me this photo that she had on her iPhone. I was trying to look at the metadata to geolocate it. That wasn't there, so she had to reach out to her friend that she was with to find it. But it's, I think, a non-functional train track. We'll get to those in a second. This is just, you can see the train tracks below her feet there. And then off to the side, there's this very rusty, rickety little platform that she was able to get on. And then eventually, this is kind of what we were looking for. And honestly, I was hoping to get more sunset in this photo, but it was very cloudy, and I don't know. It just, you know, we were making it up as we go, so I didn't know exactly my settings. I was just sort of testing, and by the time I got things, you know, even earlier when I was trying to when the sun was still up, I was trying to expose for it, and the sunset wasn't coming through. It was too cloudy. So luckily, by the time it went down, we were able to get this sort of.
What tracks are these, Mark? Where are we?
This is Long Island City.
Okay.
I can't tell you exactly where because I'd probably get in trouble. And so yeah, that's that. And actually, there's this big structure that she's hanging from that you can't see in here, but if you want, it's.
Yeah, Mark, I was going to ask you about that. Is that more powerful? I mean, like visually, like when you see that, is that more powerful not to see what it's hanging off, or like this? Because this makes it feel like it's so, you know, high. I mean,
Yeah.
what are you thinking about that?
Well, interestingly enough, my vision was showing more of the structure. I mean, it goes up probably, I don't know, at least like 6 feet more than, the top of the frame.
Mm.
But I noticed when they did like started repairing the tracks, and I wasn't able to get as far back as I wanted to. But one thing I've noticed with doing these is if we put Megan too far back, she can almost get lost a little bit, and there's almost too much going on. So I ended up cropping out the sort of elevated structure above the tracks, because it was sort of taking away from her.
Yeah, and this has to take more than 10 minutes to set up.
Ish, not really. Well, I mean, so
By now, you guys are pros, right? You just get up there.
yeah, I mean, and luckily this one had a whole a walkway with a ladder. Actually, I'd scouted this before. It had a whole walkway with a ladder that sort of went over the little bridge that we attached her from. But fortunately, we got there when the sun was still up, as we saw from the previous photos. We got there at like this hour of the day, and I rigged her right when we got there so we'd be ready. Basically, I was watching the sun to time it, to time the shot when it was going down.
And it almost looks like there's a train coming out of that station on the
Yeah, I think that, in full honesty, I think that just could be like a building light, but let's call it a train.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
So that's one, and then this is
Wow.
this is a rickety structure that was swaying a little bit, and bless her soul, she was kind enough to get up there. But yeah, you can sort of see behind her the train lights. That's, I don't know, like a lookout tower or something. But that's basically her on a platform that's attached to train signal lights. And this was the last outfit and sort of setup that we did.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, is that for that series. And very quickly, one of my favorite quotes is, "There's no crying in baseball," from A League of Their Own. However, there is crying I have another series called People Eating and Crying. It is on Instagram. So if you're curious about that, you can check that out. And that's it.
You're not going to show the crying?
No.
Okay.
I didn't include it in this because I didn't think I would have time, but.
Okay. So Mark, here's a question. Many of your shots have considerable depth of field as compared with say Bob's photos from the last segment. Is that because with her not knowing what would come next, you have to shoot a deep zone, or is there some other reason?
It's honestly, there hasn't been that much forethought into it.
Okay.
I'm sort of adjusting the exposure as I go. Obviously, I don't want to jack up the ISO too much to get too much noise. Although I find Lightroom's really great with diminishing that, but the main thing I've learned is, and especially from photographing her and other performers in nightlife, is keeping you got to keep a fast enough shutter speed to not get too much motion blur. I mean, occasionally that can be fun, but some of these performers are doing crazy things, and ideally I want to freeze them. So it's just sort of a balance, it's finding that shutter speed and then working the triangle around it.
Right. Great. Well, that's absolutely great. I mean, everyone in the chat room is loving it big time, Mark. That's great. So now, will you continue this with her?
Yes.
You will.
We're trying to schedule a video shoot with a friend of mine who's a musician, not related to this, but I mean, until something happens to one of us, I feel like we're always going to be looking for locations, basically. And when we find one, we're just like, okay, I found it. Let's figure it out.
And is it a book? Is it is it promotion work for you? I mean, especially working with Seliger, all the books he put together, the value of that from a promotion standpoint.
Yes. If you're offering to make a book for me, then yes, I would love to.
You have
I haven't thought about it, but yes, I mean, a few people have mentioned that it would be a good book, and sure, at some point. I mean, right now, I'm just trying to, I've been focusing more on video work. So someday, yes, I would love to.
All right, great. Well, when you get the book, you have a place to showcase it.
Thank you.
That's the standing.
I'll hold you to that.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Let's everyone take a quick little break, and we'll have Joel step right in. Great job, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Joel, let's get you set up. So, how come you're not making that pasta? All right. Joel, I think you're muted.
Still muted, Joel.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I am sharing. Sorry. Okay. So you see my screen? You
Yep.
see this? Okay, good. Okay,
All right,
so-
you're on the clock. Here you go, Joel.
Very good. Okay, let's do it. Let's put this away. Okay. So can you see the photograph?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. I'm starting with where I come from, which is landscapes. Landscapes, everyone knows the sky is above, the earth is below. There's a sense of depth. And from landscapes and my love of rocks, I developed into what I like to call geological photography or geological art photography, which unlike, hello?
Yeah, we're good.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So this is now, for all intents and purposes, flat. It's not perfectly flat, but there's no sky, very little depth. But I'm looking at it not about a scene or a place, but for form. And this particular form comes from a cave in Sardinia called East Sudas, which has these very unique formations called frostwork. And I looked at this and I said, wait a second. After learning a little about Jackson Pollock, I said, boy, this looks a lot like Jackson Pollock's famous Blue Poles from 1952. Now, it's not an exact copy, obviously, but the elements are there. And then I found this photograph that I had taken in 2012, even before I was fascinated with deserts and formations. But I looked at this and I said, hold the phone. This reminds me of Pollock's, Pollock's, there we go, mural from 1943, which lives in Iowa and was in the Guggenheim for about 2 months last November and December. So here's my photograph, which is a sand river in Bisti Badlands, northwestern New Mexico. And there are some little things, if you look around, see my cursor, the little thing there and a little thing there, it's kind of reminiscent of Matisse. So I want people to let their imaginations flow and make any associations you can. Here's my Fovus photograph from a drone about 200 to 300 feet up of little painted desert in Arizona, not too far from Flagstaff. And this is another drone photograph in Oregon at Painted Hills.
Joel,
Yes.
Joel, your slides seem out of sequence.
No, I put them in this. This is my sequence.
I know, but we don't see it when you're talking about it. So maybe you could watch
You don't see
that.
Painted Hills?
Now I do.
Oh, so it's taking a little time to come across?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, here we go to the next one. Can you see this one? This is another one. This is from Blue Basin. It's another drone photograph.
Yes, we
And
can see it.
you can see it? Okay, great. This is also Oregon in the John, the lava. Oh, I forgot the name. But anyway, painted. This is the Blue Basin. This is also the Oregon coast. It's another drone photograph. I call it Thor's Eye because this formation down here is actually
Oh,
called.
we don't see the photograph.
I see it.
Karen, you have the lag, I think, not the rest of us.
Oh, I have the lag. Okay, I'll be quiet.
Okay, so this is Thor's Well, which is the famous name of this thing, which at high tide fills with water like a circular waterfall and then explodes out because it's hollow under the rocks. But I didn't get there at high tide, or at low tide, so I missed the show, but it was a very interesting formation. And from above, it looks like a face. This is from the Isle of Wesson, which is about an hour and a half off the western coast of France. So I'm photographing these because of their evocative power. This is a telephoto from across an inlet. I believe this is Vistay. This was an obvious question mark, you know, in a formation that was millions of years old in White Pocket in the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument of northwestern Arizona.
Joel,
Yes.
can you share how you come upon these places? Is it research and you find them? Is it serendipity? How do you come to
Okay. There's a lot of planning that goes into this. I have some wonderful guides to photographing the Southwest by Lauren Martres, Martres. And, you know, you read that thing and your eyes pop out. And then I see, boy, I can, when I get there, I'll have my particular take on this. So this took about 5 hours, including getting lost in a four-wheel drive vehicle through sand and mud to the place where you can stay overnight. And then I managed to get this picture. But I plan my trips very carefully with a spreadsheet and for accommodations for moonrise and set, sunrise and set. And then when I get there, make modifications. But yeah, it's very, very closely planned. If anyone wants to see a sample of how I plan a trip, I'll be happy to send you an itinerary.
You know what, Joel? I know this is maybe your second time at least.
Yeah.
The next time you present, that would be great to see how you start something like that and show the sheet. That would be really.
Oh, sure. Oh, if you're interested in that, absolutely, absolutely. I'll be happy to. This is from Valley of Fire, wonderful state park about 40 miles north of Las Vegas in Nevada. It's just an infinitely interesting
Wow.
park. And this one seems to have a certain sexual connection. And this is also Valley of Fire. This is their fire wave. And this is where my companion last year got lost. I wanted to see it as the sun was close to setting, and I set out, and she said, she came with me and then said she was going back, but didn't go back. In fact, ended up spending the night in the desert, and we had to get Army helicopters out, and they finally found her at 3 p.m. the following day. Well, I was back this year, and they've set up yellow posts taking you to the fire wave. I had gone in the complete wrong direction, but it's amazing, and it's almost as nice as the famous wave in Coyote Buttes North. And there are some people on top with some walking poles. Now, this was a picture at dawn at, I believe this was Coyote Butte South. And there's the sun on this golden hill in the background. And what I see as a sleeping giant in the foreground. I see it as a giant. I see a mouth and a nose. And so it reminds me of the mythological story of the golem. But that's just me. You can see whatever you want in these. What's going on? To click back. Oh, no. All right. And this is from Coyote Butte South towards sunset. Now, in my geological art photography, there are those where the whole frame is covered with a flat plane, and you can fantasize whatever you want. But there's also the natural sculpture of which this is one. I don't know, the crowned fish, call it whatever, crouching crowned fish. But it was an amazing formation in Coyote Butte South, which was another night I stayed overnight. And I went there, you can see the snow on the ground. I went there in January and February of 2020, before the pandemic, because I wanted to see certain places like Bryce Canyon in the snow. This is also that same trip. It's Grand Falls, and it's the Little Colorado River, which is a trickle in January, but the colors are just amazing. And I believe this is a drone still. I flew my drone, I took panoramas.
Yeah, Joel,
Yes.
how comfortable or how much do you appreciate the drone now from always being, with a regular camera?
Well, I mean, the drone gives me the aerial perspective, and using what they call God's eye, which is looking directly down, I can get my flat plane photographs from a perspective very high up. So I started this flat plane thing, as you saw in that Sand Rivers for Jackson Pollock at the beginning, just photographing what was right in front of me, right under my feet, so to speak. But that with the drone, I get higher perspectives and very different compositions. It really opens up a whole new world. This is a landscape, no apologies, a landscape. I couldn't avoid it. At dusk, you can see the ice in January at Coyote Butte South. And
Wow.
finally, this is a dawn. This is a dawn with a little extra lighting, and it's also a natural sculpture. Okay, so that's the color show, but the monochrome show is a little more elaborate, a little more extensive. Okay, this is a photograph I took back in 2003 in Gabriola Island, off Vancouver Island in British Columbia, in a place called the Malaspina Galleries. And I just went nuts. The formations were so beautiful. To the right would be an opening to a saltwater sea inlet, okay, which fills some of these holes with water, and this little puddle that looks like a person. So, I mean, this is so unmistakably humanoid that I have to consider it surreal. These holes, these puddles are called tophoni. Tophoni, so singular is tophonu. It just means indentations or concavities in Italian, but you find it close to salt water or where salt water was in the distant past, like in Arches National Park. There's plenty of tophoni. There hasn't been a sea there for several million years, but this is right up against the sea. And it's also the cover of this book that I put together since my last book. And if you put your email in the chat, I'll do a drawing and send you a copy of this book. I only made 100 copies, but I think I may do another run. Okay, this is Unreal City. It's admittedly a landscape of natural sculptures. I see it as a destroyed city, or perhaps with overtones of multi-legged creatures, as we find in H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. The Martians were something like this. But these are really cap rocks in this case, in a few cases like this case over here, with the cap missing. because they fall off eventually. But I just love it. And this is my archetypical miniscape, where there's an abstract design, but there's also a concrete history. You can tease out 3 or 4 rainstorms here, which are distinguished by the rate at which the mud dried. So when the mud dries quickly, it produces these curls, this curling formation. But otherwise, you have the thin cracks. You have these little mini gradients. I'm just fascinated with this, and I made a 24 by 36 canvas of it. So you know, I like it. I hope other people like it too. Here's another one. This is from Bisti Badlands once again in northwestern New Mexico from a trip in 2016. I went to the center, the Santa Fe Center, and treated myself to a week in New Mexico. I call this one mud mosaic arrabbiata. Now, mud mosaic is David Munch's term for these formations of mud, but in his 1979 book, Desert Images, beautiful book with text by what's his name, the Monkey Wrench Gang guy. Anyway, he just shows patterns that drift off into the horizon, but I found real compositions. And so this is my very agitated, arrabbiata, angry in Italian, mud mosaic. Now this is the photograph that gave me the idea for calling this book Playgrounds of the Mind, because, you know, there's nothing here that's an obvious figure. But then again, you see some planets here, maybe 2 breasts here, maybe some fingers here. When I was in the Museum of Modern Art, I saw that a Basquiat painting had something like this, very crude. So you see these motifs in and out of art, in and out of our unconscious. So I call this Playground for the Mind. And the name of the book is Playgrounds for the Mind. And here's another one. This one I just took last month in April at a place called Little Finland, which is a very remote location. And when this is over, I'll show you on Google Earth exactly where Little Finland is. It's to the east of Las Vegas, about 10 or 20 miles from the shores of Lake Mead. But it took us about 3 hours from leaving the paved road in our high clearance 4-wheel drive vehicle to get to it. And I was even panicking that I'd never find it, but I found it. And it was an amazing place, a large playa filled with sand, and then a cliff about 30 feet high. And then you can get on top of the cliff from either side, and you walk about a quarter mile from one side to the other, from one end to the other, and see these amazing formations, which you'll see more of. This was down on the bottom, sort of. And I saw this, I immediately recognized it as something that might be interesting. I call it Dreams of Terror and Desire. And it, you know, it's very suggestive to me. And I'd be very interested to see if anyone else sees things. I mean, I see bodies extended up here. I see a face in agony here. But you can see whatever you want. Now, remember, in abstract painting, they don't make any claims that they're creating anything figurative. But I found, wait, I have to click back on this. No, back, okay. That there's a word, Paraidolia, which is the tendency to perceive a specific, often meaningful image in a random or ambiguous visual pattern. The man in the moon, right? The whale in the clouds, Hamlet says to Polonius. Yeah.
So how do you make the decision, make it horizontal or vertical? Because landscaping usually goes in horizontal.
Right, these are not really landscapes, they're geological photographs. So what was the first part of your question?
How do you make the decision?
Oh, how do I decide whether to, well,
Yeah.
first of all, about 97% of these are the way I took them, the way I saw them. Okay, because in fact, if you look at the next one, that's what I actually photographed. That was the photograph. I'm giving you one original. If you notice, there's no contrast. I took this very same photograph at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and at 7 o'clock in the morning. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there was direct sunlight, very harsh shadows and contrasts. And I went back there early the next morning when the sun was completely on the other side. So this is only skylight, and it gives me much more to work with without the shadows. Sometimes they work. Have I answered your question? I mean, I'm seeing this. I see this when I walk by this thing. I was like, oh my God, that's a photograph. I didn't know what I was seeing. I didn't name what I was seeing, but I just knew that the forms spoke to me. Okay, I've seen a lot of abstract painting.
Yes.
Here's another one. In fact, this one I just added. I wasn't sure to put this in, but the more I look at this, the more I see it. The more I see it, the more I like it.
Absolutely.
Now here's an example. This is from Valley of Fire, and we got there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Wow.
And this is an example of what you can do with geological photography in bright sunlight. You know, bright sunlight is supposed to be the enemy of landscape photography, because landscape photography is very much about light.
Right.
And so dawn and dusk, 2 hours before sunset, 2 hours after sunrise, those are the best times because the light is so magical. Absolutely, I totally subscribe to this. But when you're looking for forms without sky, without perspective, without a sense of place, harsh light, deep shadows can often be very provocative. Shadows work. Now, in this one, I must say thank you to digital photography, because I could get detail here in the original photograph. You don't see very much, but when you shoot in RAW, it's there. So I can bring this out and show you something closer to what the eye sees, because the eye can see these things. And I would tone down these to give you the texture. That's another thing. In using the RAW filter in today's Photoshop, you can enhance the texture and, of course, contrast and clarity, and give the photographs a tactility that might not have been available in film. Okay, so I call this masks, and the crack is just wonderful.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you so much. Now this one is back in the East Sudas cave. It's black and white, so it's in the black and white section. These are more of the frost patterns. These are actually called anthocytes. The forms are called anthocytes, but it's calcium carbonate. It's calcium carbonate, like every stalagmite and stalactite in a regular karst cave. It's just that the level of wetness and dryness creates these anthocytes that form into this pattern. So we're back in Jackson Pollock country with drips. But there's also the hint of a face over here, the hint of a profile. So I like to think that this is a sly reference to Arcimbaldo. Now here's a photograph that I've loved, but in my timidity, I always wonder if anyone else sees what I see. And I mean, I immediately identified this in my interpretation, which is not necessarily everybody else's, as the native Mount Rushmore. I call it the psychoschematic native Mount Rushmore, because here we have a bunch of elders, not just 4 presidents, and of course the Lakota Sioux hate Mount Rushmore because it's all those oppressive white presidents. So this is the native version, but it's in Bisti. It's in Bisti Badlands in Arizona, in New Mexico. Sorry. So these are the natives, and they're and then right beneath them is what they're thinking but not saying. This is their speech. This is what they're thinking, and then below this line is their unconscious, their traditions.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a little game that I play with myself.
That's gorgeous.
Thank you. Now here we are in one of the most provocative places in the West. This is Goblin Valley, and Goblin Valley goes for about 2 square miles of these formations that are really mudstone, and they all have these little dimples, oddly enough, and there's a lot of pyramidal triangular forms with a certain amount of variety. Now, the rocks in the back are a slightly different color, but they're a very uniform color. And I was there in 2002, and I understood that back then that when you have uninteresting color, no contrast in the color, take it out and make it about form and texture. So this is late in the day, and I call this cadets, the young cadets. But here's another one from even later in the day, I believe. And this is toward sunset when the light was very gentle. And I call this the usual suspects, because they all lined up with great separation. Goblin Valley, it's near Hanksville, Utah, population 1,800. Hanksville, the home of the scrap metal dinosaurs. If you want to know more about Hanksville, I'll tell you, there's a wonderful rock shop there too. Now here we are in Alabama Hills, near Lone Pine, population 1,200, California, on Route 395. And it's just full of wonderful rock formations, but it's better known as the setting for many cowboy movies in the 40s and 50s. It's not too far from Los Angeles. I mean, 5 hours. There's a place to stay, lots of interesting terrain. But I saw these, and I call them Shmoo Solidarity, because I see these giant obese figures, probably drunk, leaning against each other. You can see their mouths. Yeah. Right? That's true. And the Shmoo was this amorphous figure invented by none other than Al Capp, right? The artist for Lil Abner. It turned out to be a terrible reactionary. But anyway, Shmoo Solidarity. And it works as a black and white with the dark sky, I think. Now, I came up with this idea, liminal figuration, an element in an image that lends itself to interpretation as a figure, although the intentionality of the artist remains uncertain. Okay, so is this pareidolia or is it liminal figuration? Well, it's probably pareidolia because it's rocks. But if you go to the next one, if you look at a Mata painting, now Mata was kind of the second generation surrealist, 1911 to 2002 he lived, he was Chilean. Here's a 1956 painting, On the Edge of a Dream. And do you see anything you recognize? I mean, clams, or what do you want to call these things? But he's full of this liminal figuration. Now, he's an artist, so everything he does comes out of his head and out of his hand. So everything there is intentional. But then he's not telling us what anything is. So it's up to you to cross the line and say, well, I see particular things. Here's another one of his. Yeah. Here's another one. Here's a later Mata, 1996. Now, what are we seeing here? Are we seeing male sex organs? Are we seeing breasts or fried eggs here? What is it? And he ain't saying. But this is late surrealism. He's not considered an abstract expressionist, although he came to New York in the 40s and influenced the abstract expressionists. But then again, let's look at an abstract expressionist. Here's Willem de Kooning, all right? And he's definitely an abstract expressionist, but he has even more identifiable figures like an eye and maybe a cow here. Okay, so this is the tradition that I'm identifying with in taking these photographs. Now, you can't just point your camera at a bunch of rocks and click and expect to get something. It helps to have this kind of figuration in your head, and you go around and you look for things provocative, both things that you can identify like shmoos or planets or mouths or something like that, and just provocative formations that will look good as abstracts. But this one jumped out at me. This is off Route 24 in Utah. It was not a park. It was just a place that looked interesting, passing it by. So I pulled over, backed up, and walked in And about 10 or 15 minutes later, I had come upon this. You couldn't see this formation from the road, but it just looked interesting. And I said, oh my God, this is Giger country. If you know H.R. Giger, the creator of Poltergeist and someone who did a lot of devils and satanic imagery. But this kind of thing is very much like Giger. Here's two faces. So I call this Giger twins. There's a museum of Giger, by the way, in Gruyere, Switzerland. And this, I mean, to me, I see two comedians like an Abbott and Costello pair. You know, here's the straight guy on the left, and here's the comic on the right. You can call them fossils if you want. Their faces are clearly quite rotted away. But this is unmistakable. This I call the 5 million year old kiss. It's from Red Rock Canyon near Ridgecrest, California. And there were amazing formations there, but this is a close-up of one of them, and it just struck me.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Did you know about this beforehand, or you find it on your way?
I have the books, the Lauren Martres series, and there's one by someone else of California, same format, and he tells you about all these places. Now, when I was in Little Finland, I met these three guys who said, "Well, we're boondocking." I said, "What's that?" You know, you take your all-terrain vehicles and you drive around these tracks and you find amazing stuff. So, you know, I had learned about Little Finland in Martres's book on Arizona, by the way. It's his foray into Nevada.
Oh, I see.
But then there are many more that he doesn't even know about. And Lauren lives in Los Angeles, and he gets out to these places all the time. I call this chorus line. I see a line up. Anyway. And it's from, this is from Alabama Hills. And this is from very close to Newspaper Rock in Utah. Just these faces with trunks.
Yeah.
Now, here's Little Finland. Finally, we get to Little Finland. And this is one of the photographs that Frank very generously put in the publicity. I call this one Standoff. And this is from, I think, the morning. And you see these very sharply eroded formations. And it turns out that the eroding agent is sand and wind, is sand with wind, right? And it gets in your eyes. I mean, you know, it's there, but it's been going on for millions of years. So it produces these formations, and there's so many of them that are just so suggestive and unmistakable.
This is what they call it, park something.
What?
Fantasy Park. This is come from Fantasy Park.
Fantasy Park?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard that.
Okay.
But anyway, there are these holes in it which become eyes. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is my Valley girl. I'm here. I'm pointing with my finger. This is a hole. This is a little arch, a little tiny arch. There's even a nostril on top of the nose. Now here we're back in Valley in Goblin Valley, and I call this guy Jester. I mean, how many places can you find a nose like that? And this is Curmudgeon, also in Goblin Valley, and you can see the erosion patterns. But by slightly enhancing the structure, the texture, you really get a tactile sense. And once again, the color is all the same, all monotonous among the formations. Of course, the sky is blue, but I think that would make it more trite. Now here we are, we're back on the Isle of Wesson, where these piles of rocks, and in particular, this one reminded me of E.T. But then this is in Oregon, in a volcanic fissure called Crack in the Rock near Christmas Valley. It's about 1.5 miles long fissure that's about 30 feet deep. You walk into it very, very easily and stroll along. The light is very gentle. And this to me looks like it's kind of an angry, collapsed ET, but I call it intraterrestrial. And it was right below the ground. I don't know if this was from an amazingly provocative place near Salvador Dali's house in Port Yugat called Salceria Petita. And I just spent 45 minutes photographing these eroded granite formations in 2 or 3 levels. It was amazing. And I see here a zombie or a banshee. See the mouth and the eyes and the nose. There are a lot of these. But this is Cap de Creus, which Dali talks about in his autobiography. He calls it a catastrophe of cumuli in ruins. But this is a detail which was very haunting to me. There's much more to Cap de Creus. There's a little piece of it. Now this to me looked like a profile with a nose and a chin. Another natural sculpture, which was on a 4-wheel drive road, sandy road in Canyonlands National Park. But this is my Taphonoceros. This is, or Taphonoceros. This is Taphone, right? And it's from one of the great Taphone sites in the world, which is Salt Point State Park, about 2 hours north of San Francisco. And I was there in 2015 before I even learned about Lauren's books. It looks like an animal though. And this was taken in bright sunlight, so the color would make it rather banal. Give you too much sugar pleasure for your eyes. But this is called an Oriu. An Oriu. It's a giant Taphonu. They call it a single Taphonu with Taphone in it. And you can actually go inside.
Wow.
And it's from Corsica. It's from southeastern Corsica at the end of a road. I mean, you really have to go to find it, but it was very, very rewarding. And there's a little, it's been closed up with masonry. So the shepherds would go there when they drop off their sheep or their goats or their cows during the transhumance, you know, the change of lower to higher altitudes in the summer. Oh, what did I do? Click back.
What?
And this I call Approach to the Castle. And it's from Vistei Badlands, and it's an architectural to me, an architectural geological, not just a sculptural geological. And this is from Bonifacio on the southern coast of Corsica, a very famous place, and just extremely interesting. And they have all this limestone, these layers of limestone that built up on the side, and then they would fall off. There's a giant piece that's fallen off, and here's a giant piece that remained as the sea filled in around it. They call this the grain of sand, grain de sable. And Bonifacio, I'd never heard of Bonifacio. I went there, and then I learned that Bonifacio is actually the port that none other than Odysseus visited in the Odyssey, where he found the flesh-eating people, which were called the Laestrygonians, because he describes the harbor, and it's exactly the harbor of Bonifacio, very, very long, easy to navigate harbor. But these were Bronze Age people who did not like out-of-towners, and so they ate a number of his men. But now it's a thriving city with a medieval past, Bonifacio, Corsica. Now this is a sculpture garden in Vistei Badlands with hoodoos and caprocks. And here we're back at Little Finland, and I see this as a ship. Of course, this is all rock, right? So this is the water, and this is the ship, and it's Taphone.
Hey, Joel.
Yeah.
How long did it take to do a body? I mean, what you're showing here, over how many years is this?
Well, I mean, the first one, the first color one was from 2002. But most of these, you know, I really became aware of my geological mission in about 2015. I always loved rocks, but 2015 were the California ones like Salt Point. 2016 were the Vistei Badlands, and then I returned to Vistei Badlands. And well, that was 2016. I was there in 2012, and then again in 2016. By 2016, I had realized that I was going for black and white. In 2012, I still printed a lot in color, and that one, the second one I showed you, the Sand Rivers for Jackson Pollock, that's from 2012. I was really surprised to see, I had seen this, but I didn't know what to do with it. So I never included it in anything. And then when my awareness became clearer about geological photographs, I went back to it and said, oh my God, this is a Jackson Pollock. So it's now in my portfolio, but it wasn't for all those years from 2012 till this past year. This is a scene, right? It's a landscape with a close-up in the foreground of what looks like a dinosaur skull, but it's not.
Yeah, it looks like a dolphin
A dolphin skull. Okay, I like that even better.
down below there. But Joel,
Oh.
if we can move towards
Yeah, we're coming to the end. We're coming to the end. Yeah, and this is a Red Rock Canyon in California, not Nevada. And I call this the Saints because it looks like a lot of saints in a destroyed church. Valley of Fire, Valley of Fire. And this is just a little envoi, a little at the end, 3 or 4 ice pictures, because ice is instantaneous geology. And this is from Patterson Falls in New Jersey on February 12th. I remember that because this was my 3rd trip to Patterson Falls in as many weeks. And the first time I went there, I saw, oh my God, because to take an ice picture like this with the blurred water requires a neutral density filter. And I only had one for my main lens. I didn't have one for my telephoto. So I went to B&H and I bought a 58 millimeter neutral density filter. I went back and took some pictures, but I brought my travel tripod, which wasn't strong enough to eliminate all movement. So I thought, damn it, I'm gonna have to go back. But then I thought, Henry James said, genius is the capacity for taking infinite pains, right? It's not inspiration. It's just, damn it, you're gonna do it. So I said, okay, I gotta do it. And I went back with my big heavy tripod, and this is what I got at 0.8 of a second. This is right across the street from me, 1 March. And this is Goblin Valley and ice in Chester, New Jersey, where there was a drip down from a sluice, and it formed these stalagmites on blades of grass. It's very cold there. And this is from a galaxy far, far away, namely in the Bronx. It's a pond in the Bronx. And so here we say goodbye with this picture of 3 creatures taking turns at trying to eat the moon in Little Finland. Okay, there's my contact information. And I'm going to add my book, which is still available. And you can see it on earthforums.net. Okay. And I will be at the other art fair, July 22nd through 25th at the Brooklyn Expo Center in Greenpoint. So if you've put your email, which enables you to be, how do I get back to talking? To be in the drawing, I will give away one of these books. And that's it. Thank you very much. How'd I do? 45 minutes, same as Bob. All right, great. And thank you. I really want to thank Frank and Bob and Jay for putting this together, and for everyone who came.
Yeah.
My God, I was very honored by all the people who came, friends, including some very notable photographers.
Yeah, no, that's another terrific night. That was really inspiring work, and the range is great. And the beauty of it is, like, all of you can continue each of your projects and then come back, with more work, which is something that is really the name of the game, to just see how these projects evolve, right? I mean, that's really, really important to everyone to see how it goes and the promotion pieces. But you also see how, people like Louisa and Kwani, have incredible impact on people, pushing people to do work. The Mark, like with Mark working for another photographer, those influences. It's really important to, the community of photography to inspire each other. So, yeah, that was really terrific.
The world is large. There's so much more out there.
Yep. Anyone else have any questions, any comments?
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself and say something.
Unmute yourself, and
But I want to know what camera did you use?
Oh, what I'm now using a 6D Mark II.
Okay.
And it's a faster focus than the 5D Mark III that I normally use for around the
Oh.
house and around New York. So I have those two cameras I take with me. Sometimes when I do night photography, I set up one and then use the other.
Right.
Beautiful.
Frank?
Yes, Louisa.
Something that I think is, we've probably mentioned this before, but I think it speaks volumes, is the importance of the personal project. Because
Yep.
all of these photographers that we see, their work is passionate because it's personal, and that does eventually get you noticed, get you more work. We've talked about that. So this is a wonderful example tonight of these personal projects.
Yeah, and it keeps you inspired,
Yeah.
right? Which is, which is the name of the game, especially under all these different circumstances. So, Janet, did you learn something tonight? Janet appears to be the youngest young lady of the evening.
Yes,
Good. Then it's great. What did you learn, Janet?
I learned about the different rock formations where he traveled to.
Great. Okay.
Where did he go to for that?
Correspond with me, Janet. Janet, write to me, and I'll send you anyone who wants my itinerary. Just ask for the itinerary, and I'll send you the one from this past March and April. I mean, my last trip was just last month.
Yeah, I would love to see that fact sheet where you put everything together, sunsets, all of that.
It's the itinerary. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Okay, I like it to have it too. Yeah.
All right.
Just
Frank,
put your
can you
email down.
email it?
Yeah, just put your email down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Make it easy for Joel, not easy for yourself.
No.
Or send me an email.
Yeah, that's all.
What is your email, Joel?
jssphoto@verizon.net.
Okay.
jssphoto@verizon.net. And everyone who put their email down, I'm gonna have a drawing for one of these books.
And I thank Mark for his project. I do have to have a personal conversation with him later on. And Robert, Robert, you're the dream come true. Starting with an idea, getting pushed and shoved in all different directions, and seeing it to the end is just great. Really, really great. So happy for everyone, and it does make people like Swanee and Louisa know that their words are listened to, and they come to a nice conclusion. So with that, we thank everyone for coming. Also, so you should know, I have two photographers next month presenting, both former White House photographers.
Wow.
One for George W. Bush, and the other for Bill Clinton.
Hmm.
Now, we love these White House photographers.
Yeah. So
They always deliver.
So that'll be an interesting night in June. You'll hear and you'll see all the information about it. So I thank everyone for coming, and be safe, get outside, spend money, so all of our economies can come back, and burn your masks. I guess we should have a burning of the mask.
Some of them are works of art,
Yeah, we can make an art out of it.
Yeah, we'll make a quilt out of them, or a collage, and it'll end up in the Museum of Modern Art.
Is that right? Barry, everyone should send it. I don't know that he wants me to, but everyone should send their mask to, I think it's Barry Rosenthal, who takes waste and makes it
And
into.
it's Barry. Yes, it's Barry.
It is Barry.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So everyone get his mailing address and just send them your masks. And if he yells at you, it's totally my fault. But that's that.
Masks of paper, they go in the garbage.
No. We'll find you Barry's address, and we'll inundate Barry with props for his next show. So everybody, good night. Thank you so much.